Good afternoon, America. Good morning or good evening if you're watching this on replay. My name's Chris Argent and welcome to GENCFO Talks. Put me in, coach, how FP&A can get off the bench and become a strategic MVP. My big question to you today is, are you ready to be part of a role revolution? Well, we think it's time for change, and GENCFO Talks and the GENCFO community are all about making better progress in our profession. Now, GENCFO Talks itself is not meant to be another boring leadership lecture or a best practice conversation or a sales pitch. It's a real highlight of the GENCFO community calendar, and we like to see it as part of a change movement driving this role revolution that we talk about in finance and in the finance function. So the GENCFO community is a very engaged community, and we love talks particularly because it's an opportunity to get involved. We love interaction. So on your screen, you can see the engagement buttons, you can react, and why not going to the chat now and let everybody know what you had for your last takeout or something. Mine was sushi, by the way. But just sort of interact via the chat and using the reaction buttons because it makes it quite fun for us. And also, this is being recorded. So if you do want to have the recording, then it will be available to subscribers and members next week. And there's more on that a little bit later. If you want to ask questions directly to the panel or myself, then use the Q&A button. It's a lot easier to find. I will be facilitating the whole session, but it's a lot easier to find if you use the Q&A buttons. And anything that we don't get to, anything we can't answer, we'll put on our Clubhouse group, on our community, and make sure that we're getting some answers that way. So, there we go. Great to see a lot of takeouts going in there. I'll come back to that. So GENCFO Talks are really proud to work with some of the best people in the industry. And today we have Revelwood, a great partner. They are helping finance organizations with their close, consolidation, planning and monitoring, and analyzing their business performance. And they're helping people and businesses achieve their full potential. And that is what today is all about. So just a bit of a scene setter. Today we're talking about how FP&A can change to meet their full potential. We're sort of framing that as a strategic MVP, most valuable player. And when we were doing our planning, we came across a sporting analogy, as you do, and we looked at the NFL blocker tackler versus the playmaker quarterback. Now, I don't know what I'm talking about in this field, but I do know a lot about FP&A, and I do know some great people are going to help me with a lot of questions today. We're going to look at how the playmaker role might be relevant for FP&A. We're going to look at, how the quarterback skill set might help FP&A. And we're also going to look at the opportunity, but whether we can change, whether we're able to change into that role. We can look at the greatness of the position, but we need to be ready to change and move into that and transition to this playmaker mindset. So to help me with some of these big questions, we've got a real expert panel today to help us out. And I'm just going to introduce them one by one now. So first of all, we have Paul Barnhurst. I think everybody will know of Paul and the work he does and the podcast he runs, FP&A Today. He is the FP&A guy. Hi, Paul. We have Dino, Daddona, who is VP Finance Transformation of Americas at Revelwood. And we have a great institutional partner with us, the Barry Payne, Regional Vice President Americas for the AICPA and CIMA. And I can see this is going to be a really rich conversation because we've got very different perspectives on this. And I just want to sort of talk about one thing to get us out of the blocks. Welcome. First question. Why is it that we've been talking about sort of FP&A moving to this strategic role? potentially for decades. But we haven't really seen the progress that we want. Progress, I think we'll all agree, has been fairly slow. So what do you think is different now compared to, say, previous decades? And I'll come to Paul first and then Barry.
Yeah, I mean, I think like anything, there are so many things you look at history that take decades. I mean, how long have we been Excel's been around 40 years and things don't happen overnight, I think is for the first message. Second, just the world we live in. It's more complex. We have a lot more uncertainty. COVID, I think, accelerated a lot of that when all of a sudden everybody wanted a new plan every day because are we shutting down? Are we reopening? What's going to happen next week? Do I have a business? Do I have cash? And so I think as things continue to accelerate, it's put FP&A more front and center. Technology is caught up a lot to make the job easier, probably a little less back office. I mean, you see a lot of people from FP&A coming from much more than just accounting. Not that accounting to FP&A is a great career path. We have a lot of investment bankers, engineers. They come with a different mindset. And I think all of those are things that are driving it forward. There's more than that. But I think the other is companies are seeing the benefit, right? The data clearly shows that if you have a best-in-class FP&A, your company performs better. Now, obviously, some of that is tied to the fact you probably have a really good company if you have best-in-class FP&A. They go hand in hand. But it shows the point of how important FP&A can be to a company.
Excellent. Barry, what's your take on this from an institution's point of view?
Oh, totally, totally. So I think there's never been a better time to be in an FP&A role. And by the way, just a shout out, I've been looking at all the participants. There's a whole bunch of friends out there. So hi, everyone. I think that a few things here. First of all, obviously, the rapid exponential rise of utilization of technology is, I think, redefining the role of FP&A, which sounds a bit like hype. But what that means in reality is we've got a whole bunch of executives out there that have access to a whole bunch of information. And we need to think about how do we redefine our roles to best coach, to use your term, coach executives in helping them make very, very well-informed business decisions. And as you said, Paul, I think that really challenges the mindset that we go in with. It certainly challenges the skill set that I know that we're going to be exploring. And, business partnering as a term has been around since the year XXXXX, and certainly at AICPA and CIMA, we've been thought leading on this for many, many years. But I think with the rise of technology, with the uncertainty in the market that Paul mentioned, with the ability, the ubiquitous sort of data that's out there, we have a tremendous opportunity to raise the game and coach our business in good decisions. Never been a better time, Chris.
Dino, Daddona?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in interesting times. I love how you're using the football analogy and kind of like saying a little something about blockers, which I was a blocker in high school, so I don't know about this. Anyway, so we'll get off the jokes.
No
But
way.
yeah. So I mean, as technology starts getting infused into companies, and we've been through this, maturation of different technologies, right? We're still living in Excel, right, in this day and age, but we've watched, RPA, robotic process automation, kind of take care of some of the, mundane tasks. Right now, we're getting into, machine learning was like the last, decade where we talked a lot about that, helping us with, planning and doing things like that. And then also, now getting into AI, generative AI, helping us with questions, and then also, AI as far as, as agentic AI, which is now helping folks form plans and do things at a more rapid, robust pace. So I think that technology kind of link between the guys that are on the bottom, doing the plans, putting together, and the strategic business leaders is now going to be closer and closer together with the different tools that we're able to use today.
Excellent. It's great to get a sort of perspective from the experts, the panelists, but I want to invite the audience in now. So if you look at your screen, you will see a poll that's popped up, and it'll be great to sort of understand where you guys are. So where is FP&A today focused for you? The answers are reporting, finance business partnering, or strategic partner. And we didn't put all three because we thought that would be a cop-out. Everybody will put all three. So you're going to have to choose where you are in that scale. And we will unpick that when we let that run for a second. So just moving on, so FP&A wants to step up into the quarterback position, right? They want to be this playmaker for their business, but what needs to happen at kind of the board level or CFO level to enable this? Because it's all well and good saying, I want that job, I want that position, but there has to be a level of change there as well. Barry, what have you seen?
Oh, totally, absolutely, totally. There needs to be education at the board level around the value of the CFO's office. I was only talking to a CFO of a large corporation yesterday, and the big thing that I took away from this with regard to role influence and all of those things is the sheer diversity of experience that CFO had. And I think what's really important, and I would say this given who I am, is the importance of growing very flexible career paths in the finance function. So people get aspects of all manner of different things: controllership, M&A, treasury, in addition to FP&A, commercial finance and beyond. I know it's a cliche, but the term business acumen is so important. And I know I'm doing it a disservice by just calling it that. But the ability to go and support the CFO to look around corners and to provide insights that the board can really resonate and connect with. It's an influence game, it is, Chris.
Yeah.
So I took all from the conversation.
Paul, do you see that as well? This almost like that we are prepping people for the board via FP&A. I've certainly heard of strategy departments starting to get closer with FP&A and vice versa.
Yeah, I definitely think, there's clearly a strategic component. I really like something Barry said there of, helping see around corners. The CEO of, I think it's Kruger Products, their toilet paper company, he grew up in FP&A and went on to become a CEO. And he always says, I want my FP&A to be able to peek around corners to help me see what's coming. Carl Seidman, in one of the podcasts I did with him, great, FP&A person out there that a lot of people will recognize if they're on LinkedIn at all.
Yeah.
He called it like the great anticipator. One of the most important roles is being able to anticipate. And so I just wanted to kind of add to that, Barry, because I think you nailed it with that comment. What I'll say on the strategy side is definitely they're looking to be more strategic. And we're seeing that more and more. CFOs are coming from a heavy FP&A background because of the operational and strategic nature. It doesn't mean you can't be a great CFO from a controller. Some people go from controller to FP&A, but we're seeing more and more of an FP&A background because you often operate like a mini CFO supporting general managers in FP&A. And so you get a lot of that commercial and operating experience. And if you're going to be good at that, you have to be strategic. Right? A CFO has to understand strategy. It's not enough to just understand accounting or operations or even the business.
Dino, do you see that reflected in kind of the buying decisions? Because obviously, you come from an implementation partner. I just wonder whether, there's been a change there as well in potentially who's buying.
You're teeing up exactly what I was going to say. It's like every time I get on these calls now and talking financial transformation with companies, and the CFOs are there sometimes leading the way. Like you look at it and you see the folks that are on the phone and on the call with you, accountants, operations people, everybody's being brought into the fold to talk through how we can do a financial transformation across the company, right? And I think a lot of the CFOs, one I was just talking to lately, they're coming from the CIO position, that have accounting background and technology background, come from that because they realize the importance of technology getting infused into these companies today. So I think we're going to see more and more of that. I think you're going to see a lot more people focused that have the technology background coming into the CFO position as well.
Barry, I just want to sort of reflect on the first poll that we had here. So we can share the poll for everybody and anybody on the recording. It's 39% reporting, 39% finance business partnering. So that's sort of neck and neck. And then we have 21% strategic partners. So, 2 out of 10 are actually getting to this, but 80% aren't. And, 39%, which is a lot, are kind of stuck in what do you make of that?
I have a lot of sympathy if you're stuck in reporting, and I know that you want to get out of reporting, but that's just the way that it is. We have this wonderful slide here at AICPA CIMA. It's called Insight to Influence the Impact. So if you imagine insight is the reporting, influence is the finance business partnering, and of course, impact is the strategic partner. We need to spend time getting our data governance right. We need to spend time producing less than a 76-page management report, which I'm not doing the audience a disservice, but no one reads. But I do have a lot of sympathy with those in reporting because that's just where we are. But I think, Dino, you've probably got lots and lots to say, and Paul, about how we can continue to utilize the tools out there to be able to make that reporting a little less onerous and more efficient. What it also says to me is there is a really awesome upskilling play to get people to the FBP and the strategic partner. The results don't surprise me, Chris, but there's just an opportunity.
Well, you set me up lovely there, because we have another poll which I'd love to share with the audience on just that subject. So obviously skills and change and, developing both from, the board and, entry level junior roles as well. It seems like this is a whole change needs to happen. But which skills are most critical to your FP&A team
You did
today?
give him a cop out on this one, though, Chris. You gave him all of the above.
I did, I did. I've seen that as well. I wanted to try and force it. Oh, don't say that. Look, they're all voting for it now. But I think that let's let it run. But I think the message is still there. And while it's running, I'm just going to come to you with that question about, it sounds like everybody needs to change here. The board needs to understand this shift. Our partners, HR, recruitment world need to understand this shift, and maybe so that the entry level skills need to change as well. So everybody needs to evolve. But I'm just curious how, especially when we have technology partners and expert modelers on this talk, how is the technology going to support that? And what's the link between strategy and, the doing? How do we link the two? And Dino, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I mean, I think technology is going to be the bridge, between FP&A, the operational tasks, and then both the strategic potential of the company, right? So, there's lots of modern tools out there today that can help with that. Excel is, I know I'll call it Excel hell. A lot of people are stuck in it, right? You need to get out of it. It's really hard to model in those types of solutions. Great productivity tool, not a great for scenario analysis. And then, for leaders, I think, these tools will provide like real-time scenario modeling, predictive insights, enabling them to align, their financial plans with the strategy, right? So, I mean, the link is clear, right? Technology amplifies the ability of people to think strategically. It requires a mindset to kind of shift and prioritize, these tools, and then using them to drive business outcomes and not just for efficiencies, right? So I think that's the key thing I want to say here at the end is like, let's drive outcomes and not just efficiencies with these tools, which a lot of folks get trapped in.
But Barry, you talked about upskilling. What's the sort of the new paths that are coming through here?
Threefold. Dino, absolutely right. So, we've got to look at the leadership landscape first and the environment to upskill people. And we produced a report a little while ago now with KPMG around, why finance transformations fail. However, why they succeed, Chris, is that 40% of the respondents said that the crucial part of success is about creating the right mindset and curiosity, and not just implementing the tools, but creating an environment where people feel comfortable and curious to be able to use the tools and work differently. So that's the first thing I'd like to say. We're AICPA and CIMA are obviously custodians of two world-leading designations in the CPA and the CGMA CIMA. And we have recently produced something called the T-shaped finance professional, which is a little benchmark on how to develop people. And for those of you that have come through the old accounting route or whatever, it's nothing to do with T-shaped accounts. It just happens to be a T. And we advise companies on this. So making a little joke there. The vertical part of the T, this is a capital T. The vertical part of the T is technology. Thank you. Technology aptitude and functional and technical skills, wherever those might be. And then the horizontal part of the T are effectively all of the strategic partnering skills like storytelling, communication, strategic and critical thinking, collaboration. And we're working with most companies on those horizontal skills. That's what our Future of Finance group tells us every day that they need to kind of up the game on. Our professional qualification of CGMA, by the way, Chris, has just been upgraded. It's always been focused on that, but at the same time, we've actually upgraded it to give case studies and use cases around how to specifically use generative AI to create insight. So, yeah, there's a heck of a lot.
Congratulations.
Yeah, heck of a lot going on in this area.
There is a lot going on. Paul, I just want to come back to the poll, because it actually sounds like what our panel is saying actually chimes with the audience. We've got 52% of people are saying all the above. Technical communication, business acumen are critical, which that was the answer that I shouldn't have put in there. But I think the key thing here is that only 3% have actually said, and that's only 3% have said technical skills are most critical for FP&A. Communication and acumen are around 20% each. What do you say to that?
Well, the reality is technical is table stakes. If you don't have the technical skills, you're on your way out at some point. If I'm hiring somebody, I want curiosity, I want ability to communicate, I want empathy. They can tell a story, they can think critically, and I'll train them on a lot of the technical skills. If they're a smart person with what we call a growth mindset, they'll figure it out. Now, do I want both? Of course. We all want someone that's really good technically and that also has great business acumen and communication. But they're often not in the pay range we want to pay, or they're not at the level where they've developed all that yet. So you have to pick what's most important to you. And I'd say if you're picking technical skills as most important, you're making a mistake for most roles. There are exceptions. Like one of the best people I ever hired was a data guy, had no interest in being in finance. I was working in a company that data was a complete mess, and he wanted to fix the data. Communication, he was okay, but it definitely wasn't his strengths. He wasn't his soft skills. He could spend all day in the spreadsheet, but it was a fabulous hire. So there's a balance. You need the technical, but again, I go back to that's really table stakes. Without the communication and business acumen, you can't be seen as front office, as strategic, as helping the business really with strategy, execution, and planning, which is where FP&A plays a role.
I can feel an argument coming on here actually, because I feel that we're all in agreement, right? That other skills need to be developed, but it almost seems that we're discounting technical skills. So is there a sort of technical skills versus business acumen skills argument here, or are we just saying we're learning them in a different order? Dino, when you're talking to people about implementation and getting this stuff done, do you find that it's a business acumen conversation rather than a technical skills conversation?
Yeah, I mean, if we're like, turning dials and flipping switches and building financial models, obviously technical skills are very much needed. Like some of our implementation folks that we have that are great solution architects that can do that, right? But if you start talking about the way people come into business, right, at the entry level, which really, what do all they have is technical skills, right? They don't have the business acumen yet and all those other communication. They may have some communication skills, but those get developed over time. So as people start to move along in their career, I feel like those skills get better and better over time. And I would say the one I highlight the most, I think is the most important to me, at least. I think I agree with Paul 100%. Business acumen is the one. They got to understand the business. They got to understand, when I flip this switch, what happens to this one over here, right? Those are the types of things I think that comes with experience over time, right?
But Barry, do you think there's a risk here, though, that we could turn the volume down on technical skills for the progression of this, FP&A, the goal of finance business partnering being a strategic partner? Because, how do we develop the business acumen without sort of, completely ignoring the fact that we need technical skills? Because obviously we do.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's our entry pass, Yeah, I mean, in a way, yes. I mean, I don't think anyone's saying that technical skills are bad or they're less of a priority, but there are just bigger priorities out there, and it's just thinking how you can kind of develop those technical skills, whether it's various different roles within an organization. I always say to people, I think an amazing start to a career in business finance in the CFO's office is through controllership, because I think that provides just such core accounting that it just sets you up for absolute life in what you want to do. Developing, making sure you've got the right credentials, the right qualification. Obviously, we need to update our technical knowledge no matter what it is. So that commitment to kind of CPE and things. But as Alana says on the chat, I think there are various different ways in how we can get there. And we have to, because, if we're going to develop business acumen, we need to develop it in the context of the technical skills that we've actually developed. So, and it is our entry pass, Chris. So,
table stakes, entry pass, but we do need them. And to Dino's point, maybe it's reflecting where people are in their careers as much as anything else. I do, Paul, just coming back to you on this sort of being a well-informed decision support for the business, how do you think that we can develop that? Because I hear a lot about communication skills and just being a better communicator, but if we're just a glorified messenger of the wrong stuff, that's not helping anyone.
No, it's a great question. The number one thing I would say for somebody, especially early in their career, if they want to start to be more of a business partner and help inform decisions, is spend as much time as possible learning the business and learning the operations. Ask the why. Be curious. That's where it starts. And by doing that, you start to show the business you're interested. They're more willing to come to you with problems. You're able to influence conversations beyond, oh, that number's wrong, or we need to fix the graph, or all of those things they expect from a numbers nerd, so to speak, instead of real conversation. So for me, it 100% starts with understanding operations and business, going out and sitting with the product team, going on a sales call, going into the factory, whatever it may take, reading the industry magazines, reading the competitors' 10Qs and 10Ks, taking the time to learn, and you build from there. The storytelling you need to improve. I mean, there's lots of things that go beyond that, and you can develop those over time, empathy, so many other things. But if I had to boil it down, you got to start with curiosity and learning the business.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard that time and time again. And surely, if we are seeing this sort of divergence of strategic teams and FP&A teams, strategic teams are all about the operations of the business. So, it kind of stands to reason that we do both these things. I just want to ask our last poll question. It's always great to get the opinions of the audience, and you're doing such a good job. So let's go again. This one is, that's making me hungry.
Yeah, it doesn't say I'm hungry. Thanks, Chris.
Hey, look, it's after lunch. You should be fine. Which best describes your tech stack? Because, there is a lot of debate over Excel versus other things versus more advanced platforms, even whether to be a citizen data scientist or, whatever it is. But let's just answer this simple question first. So is it Excel only? Is it a mix of Excel and other tools? Or is it an advanced FP&A platform where maybe you are not relying on Excel? That doesn't mean you don't export anything to Excel, but, not relying on Excel so much. And we're going to let that run for a bit. There we go. So, Dino, you're perfectly placed to sort of reflect on this one. We're going to end the poll and just share. Okay, so the majority of people are saying it's a mix of Excel and other tools. I'm surprised that actually, the tech stack is only 9%, Excel is only 9%, because I would have thought that's actually the honest truth for a lot of organizations. They really are very Excel dependent. Dino, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to guess before this came out, I would say it was going to be the mix and the majority would be in the middle. I mean, we're seeing it definitely a reliance on people, the shift happening, people moving to more FP&A tools and more platforms. Where those platforms, the cycle times are quicker, you can do scenario analysis quicker, there's less, errors with like you can have within Excel. Obviously, Excel is very static. You can't really, passing templates around, people, change things and send it back to you. The aggregation of data, all those things that are really hard to do within Excel. It's getting people to move to FP&A platforms, right? So I mean, it's not just about like efficiency anymore. It's about unlocking the data throughout the business and in the organization, right? And the way you do that is with modern tools, right? And that's why when we're talking to companies about financial transformation, we're talking about from ERP systems through planning through financial close and the whole gamut, because they're looking to be able to unlock all the data they have throughout their whole organization, right? And some of the concerns, moving to more things like AIs, it's just the familiarity with Excel, right? Like everybody who's in finance grows up with Excel. They use it through college or Google Sheets. I don't want to put them out on this, but they're using it through college. They're using it into their jobs. Usually as an entry level, they're using it a lot. And do you ever get rid of it out of the business? No, I don't think so, right? Like people are just always going to be stuff that you're going to use Excel for. But getting to a more modern platforms where you can reshape the business through financial transformation is going to be the tick of the scale of your business in this modern day.
But Paul, I know you're very close to the tech side of things. Not to deep dive in that, you've sort of watched the generations as they go. But there is this question around whether we really need to be financial modelers, to actually sort of really go deep into that area, whether that is the right approach. And a lot of the argument around that is, if the culture of your team is Excel first, then why not kind of keep going on that journey versus, bringing in something completely new. The reality here looks like, there's a mix of tools. What's your take on the result?
Yeah, I'm surprised a little bit at the 9% for Excel only. My guess is a little bit of that is everybody has other tools they use, whether it's BI. How do you define other tools? Are we talking just planning, or some people including their general ledger, right? Because the finance office is going to have multiple tools. But where's the bread and butter of the work get done? Regardless of how much the advanced platform, great platforms are out there, and I talk a lot about them. Excel is still the core workhorse for much of what we do. And particularly the spreadsheet, whether it's Google Sheets, Excel, a spreadsheet in your FP&A tool. I mean, as Dino knows, many of these advanced platforms integrate very closely with Excel and often allow you to still do your forecasting in Excel. Because the spreadsheet, in my mind, is the perfect platform for a human to think, that, 2D type of platform. There's some real benefits when you go to multidimensional and planning and connecting things and speed and all those type of things. So everybody has to balance that. But, I always think at a minimum for edge use cases, Excel or Google Sheets or some kind of standalone spreadsheet is still going to always be core to that tech stack. But you do run the danger of thinking, hey, I should do everything in a spreadsheet. And the reality is you need the BI tool. You need something that can handle a billion records for a lot of businesses. You need that quick consolidation, that automated reporting. And so you need and security and other things around it. As you develop and grow, an Excel-only mentality is dangerous, in my mind.
And Barry, from a kind of training and upskilling, a point of view, I'm sure people come to you asking for training as, part of the institution. Do you see this demand for, advanced Excel modeling, or is it's all right, we got it, we're going to go and buy another tool?
Well, if you're going to buy another tool, good luck to you, but you're going to need to really work on people's skill sets. Totally. I mean, pretty much every single organization that I work with is looking at, creating more curiosity around these things and upskilling people. And we don't specifically focus on training people in certain tech stacks or certain products. We're more generic than that, but it's all about creating the right curiosity and the right mindset to deliver growth of the finance organization. By the way, I love Alana's comment on the chat, because it's really us supporting people through upskilling in these technologies so they can be the architect, rather, push more towards the architects and be comfortable that they're also delivering that guardianship work as well, Chris. So a lot of demand in this area. We have plenty of trainings out there on AI technology tools and all of those type of things.
Excellent. So look, I'm switching lanes again, and really want to try and nail practical things that people can do. And I loved your comment, Paul, earlier on, where you said, well-run companies, also have best-in-class FP&A teams, or is it the other way around? Is it causation or correlation? But what does that look like, and what may be holding people back?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's some clear themes. I think it varies from company to company as far as what the tactical things they're doing. You can have a great FP&A company or great company in FP&A owning RevOps or doing sales commission calculations. And you can have other companies, a great FP&A, that have nothing to do with that. So I think there's some core things. One, they recognize that the role finance is just the language of numbers. Our job in finance is to help the business make better, faster decisions. The only way we can do that, and I'm going to go back to it, is understanding the business, having conversations, being able to tell the story. And when I say data story, a lot of people think of storytelling. A data story for me has two components that's different from a report. One, there's some kind of insight, some kind of knowledge you're giving the audience, and there is a call to action. If it doesn't include those two things, you're probably doing a report or an update, which is fine. Those are needed as well. And so I think, the key to me here is really, again, it goes back to the partnering and being involved and really helping answer questions for the business. And I'll share, I recently interviewed a guy who runs a nationwide HR firm. And so he hires a lot of FP&A. He said there's two things he's seeing a lot right now. Accountants and FP&A are very hot, hard to find good ones. But when we talk about FP&A, he goes, they want somebody that has some business intelligence tool skills, often Power BI or Tableau. That's becoming more and more important. But beyond that, the most important thing they want is they want someone who doesn't just throw the numbers at the business and say, here we go. They want someone that can help them interpret and decide what to do based on those numbers. They're looking to us for guidance.
Dino?
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree more with Paul. I think he's dead on. And it's becoming more and more. We go in to do technology projects at companies. We're seeing that there is a lack of resources, right? So it's hard to even get the technology in because the folks that are in there are really struggling to find good and quality resources across the FP&A teams, and there's definitely a shortage. I agree with his point about making good skills and being able to do scenarios and things like that and be able to have insights into the business. Talk about outcomes, right? Like people aren't ever talking about outcomes anymore. Like what is this intelligence that we're learning? What is the outcome of this, and how are we going to solve for that, right? Seems like that has been a lost science, right? Like most people are putting in technology, and all they want to do is efficiency. How can we save instead of like what are the business outcomes we can drive with this technology, right? I'm sorry, I always look at this from a technology standpoint, but that's my field, obviously.
But there are two ends of that, right? There's the technology, but then there's the insight that you deliver, and to my point earlier, we're not trying to be, great communicators of the wrong stuff, right? We're trying to be great communicators of the right stuff, therefore great strategic partners. Barry, anything on this?
I did a lot of work with entrance into the profession, and I've got this little thing that I present called the opportunity telescope, and it's got 3 bits to it. So the first bit, if you can see this, is working in the business. So that's like being stuck at your desk and doing spreadsheets all day. Then there's working on the business, which is actually what Jen was saying in the chat, where you're going out, you're meeting people, relationships are absolutely key, joining the dots and things. And then the final piece, which I'd like to congratulate all your attendees today doing, Chris, is working out of the business. And I think as a leadership community, we need to be comfortable letting people roam on and out of the business. Not like it's going to be like, 50, 60% of their job, but just equip them with that knowledge and that business understanding, that curiosity for when they're actually going to really, really need it. So, the entrance to the profession kind of relate to the telescope analogy.
I like it. I like it. I like the way you talk in pictures. It's good. It's good for someone like me. So look, there's been a couple of comments in the chat about AI, and Barry, you brought it up earlier as well. And boy, I can't do a talk at the moment without talking about AI in some way. But with every AI everywhere, I think we do need to talk about it. So how do you think probably FP&A workflows, the processes around this will change over the next sort of 3-5 years? This is a bit of crystal ball gazing, but there's so much hype around this. It'd be great to get, an opinion from you all as to where you think this is going. And Dino, I'll come to you first as the technologist.
Yeah, I really think, it started with robotic process automation. I alluded this in the beginning of the conversation here, right? So that was kind of just, automating tasks, right? That was very kind of easy. Then we got into machine learning, right? So I'll give you an example of that. So I had a friend of mine who's running a scenario within one of the FP&A tools. He ran a scenario of just the machine learning, 100% predictive to see what it would come over the year. He ran that against his own forecast and then also ran it against the actuals at the end of the year, and they all came within 5%. So we're seeing over time, these things are getting tighter and tighter and closer. But I think with AI, I think the biggest challenge that we're going to have totally is just trust in the data, right? So, it's just the same as if I assigned a task to a young FP&A person. I'm now assigning it to a piece of technology to go do this work for me. Are we going to be able to trust in that data? And that's going to take time for us to kind of do that and trust in these processes to make sure that they're actually interpreting and spitting out the correct outcomes and predictions for us, right? So, we're seeing it. Every vendor conference that we've gone to so far, 80% of the conversation is around AI. Is it going to, take people's jobs? Is it going to end finance forever? All these types of things. That's all we're hearing about and seeing. And I believe strongly. I think there's other things that matter, and it is what makes us to be human, which is, we need emotional intelligence, we need ethical decision making, we need strategic vision, we need, communication and storytelling, like Paul talked about. Like all these things are what it means to be human. And I don't think AI will ever replace that, right? But it's 100% going to augment things, and it's going to make our lives a lot easier, and will actually elevate us to the point where we can have those more strategic conversations with business leaders, right?
But Paul, I'm going to come to you on this one, and I think if you will, there's AI and then there's AI, right? And I think it's I wrote an article recently called, yes, AI, but which AI? Because we've had machine learning and statistical models in FP&A for a very long time, right? So, where do you think this is going, and maybe scratch on some of those things? Because I'm sure you're close to the methodologies with this stuff.
When it comes to AI, I'll just say yes to all of it. I mean, machine learning, they all have their place and they're important. And the example I'll give is there's a recent accounting tool that's launched. They spend 5 years working on it. And for all their classification of journal entries, they use machine learning because it's more accurate. And then when it couldn't be done, they turned it over to an agent on generative AI. Working together, they're getting a 98% accuracy rate on their classifications. But majority of the work was done on machine learning. If I'm forecasting right now, a lot of that is machine learning. Even if I'm using generative AI to help me, write profit or be that citizen data scientist, what's being done in the background is often machine learning. So first, I think it's very important to realize they go together. This is not an either or, one or the other. They both have their places. The next thing I'll say is, generative AI is rapidly changing, and it's going to start being integrated more and more into our workflows. It's integrated in technology, right? A lot of our workflows, where do a lot of us do our variance commentary, our modeling, our forecasting? In a spreadsheet, in Excel. Even if we have a tool, a lot of times it's done in Excel and loaded to the tool. We've all seen it. I've worked at big companies where that was the case. And AI is now being integrated directly into the tools. I have a podcast series I'm doing about that, and we just did some testing, and we're talking some of the most difficult Excel competitions in the world, and the AI tool was able to extract everything and score top 3 in the entire UK. I think it may have been number 1. We didn't have the score in front of us with one prompt.
Yeah.
The way we work is changing because the tools can do a lot of it inside our tools now. It's just a matter of adjusting and figuring out what tools. There's so many in the market. There has to be some, I think, consolidation as well, because it's overwhelming at the moment.
But I'm pleased you sort of dug into it a little bit there, because I do think, as you've said, machine learning will be used for certain use cases and has been used a lot in modeling. And, there is a development, and potentially it's on the process and the workflow or the combining of these things. So, I personally, I think we all need to get a lot closer, to this subject rather than just spouting AI all the time. But anyway, that's just me. I do want to. I tricked you a little bit. I do have one more final poll that I want to ask everybody, and you'll understand why when you see it. It's basically, what's your next priority? So you've heard what we've said, and I can't stand, people just coming to a talk and hearing it all, and as soon as they unclick the webinar or whatever it is, the learning, they do nothing. Okay, so please take this as an opportunity to almost commit to what you're going to do next, right? And the answer is, it's skills development, it's sort of technology investment, or it's looking at the role before you do those two things, redefining the role. I think it's great to write these things down. They're more likely to happen if you write these things down. So when you click that button, consider it written, and you're going to do something about it. And while I've let this run, I'm just going to sort of come to Barry on this. So, obviously you're focused on the skills development side of things. If someone had clicked on that, what sort of things would you be looking for them to do next?
Well, I don't want to lead the audience, so
they've answered. So it's all right.
Don't be led. But if I was to say my priority, it would be redefine FP&A role, number 2, skills development, and number 3, tech investment, because I speak a lot with our Future of Finance members about the holy trinity of mindset, skill set, and tool set. And I'm not on cloud 9. I know that they don't all run in parallel, but I think it is all about redefining FP&A's role, and as a leadership community, really trying to challenge and redefine our identity in an organization, from the CFO no to the CFO no with a KN, or as a trusted friend of mine who many of you will know, said the CFO go, there's no point being a no unless you can affect a decision and actually make an impact. So it's that identity, and I often get laughed at, Chris, when I ask CFOs and FP&A leaders whether they've got a vision or a mission for their team, and they go, "Oh, that's just fluffy stuff." Well, it's not fluffy stuff. It really is a rallying call. And that sets up an environment for individuals to be psychologically safe and be curious about some of the technology around skills development, and what processes and problems, opportunities are we actually trying to solve, and thinking about the business first, not thinking about technology, but thinking business first, and then having enough awareness and knowledge of potentially what technology can do just to go and have a dig. And dig is a UK phrase, Chris. I thought I might use that with you.
Dig. Yeah, it sounds good. And, look, if FP&A don't have a vision, then, if they are to be strategic partners, your vision is the corporate vision. So just chase that one. That's problem solved. Dino, there's the poll result has come back, and it's put technology investment in third place. They weren't led by Barry, don't worry. They had answered mostly before then. So, but what would you say to that? Do you accept that, we have to go on a journey before we go for the technology? Because there are a lot of people out there who just like shopping for tools.
Yeah, I agree with Barry 100%. I mean, you need the skill sets, obviously, to implement and do these technologies. You also need, the right mindset to be able to put these in place, right? And my suggestion would be to people is to go out and build that roadmap, right? And start looking at, and it's definitely with AI, like you got to start looking at your business, figuring out across the entire company, and start building out where you can start inserting AI and other technologies into your business, and build that roadmap out over a 3 to 5 year plan, and be able to slowly implement and put that stuff in. Because you can never have the skill set, the mindset, all those things right up front to be able to go out and just boil the ocean and do it across your business. But what you really got to do is develop the skills in the mind and all that stuff as you're going along the journey with the technology, right? So I think that he's 100% right. You need to have those in place to make sure that the technology implementation and stuff is successful.
And that traditionally, that's the advisory work, right? Before we actually commit to stuff. Great. Paul, any last comment on that?
I always like to say people, process, technology, or platform, if you want the 3 Ps. And I say the technology is the enabler. If you don't have the right people and the right processes, don't implement technology. One of my favorite quotes, it was Hassert Consulting. New technology plus old processes equals expensive, broken new technology. Right? Everybody's laughing because we've been there. We've seen it done.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I also like, we're in agreement, I think, here, but I also like it because you can get a very long way with, setting a vision and changing your process, particularly when it's a strategic conversation. But you do need to be talking about the right stuff, and that is when the technology can definitely help. So look, I'm conscious of time, so we're gonna move to close, and it would just be nice to get sort of final thoughts from you all on taking people back to square one. Right, we are looking to make this move from blocker tackler to playmaker quarterback. What's your final message, and maybe in terms of what they can do tomorrow, real sort of practical stuff. And I'm going to go Barry, Dino, and Paul.
Well, this is going to wow you, Chris. So don't go for a massive, complicated flea flicker. Just hand it off to a really athletic running back. So what I mean by that is, one thing that I think is very liberating is just to think about how we can empower our teams to go and seek out new knowledge and information and make it psychologically safe for them, and just to reassure them that their jobs are not going to go away. So hand off to that running back, and soon you'll be running bombs and flea flickers down the field. Now, Paul and Dino might have a clue what I'm going on about.
Yeah, so I'll go with the football analogy too. Like we're not even in the first quarter here. We're standing on the field ready to flip the coin here, right? And this is the AI revolution. It's the AI revolution about to behold us, right? And I think people can't even comprehend where this is going, between AI technologies and quantum computing and all this stuff that that's going to happen in front of our eyes here over the next 5 years. And I think it's bigger than the internet, right? So I would advise everybody, as you're upskilling, right, and you're creating new skills, like go out, learn about technologies, get your skill set in line and get it ready for what's about to come of us, and really build a roadmap for your business of what technologies you can put in place and the people that you need to do that, right? Because it's going to happen fast. Cycle times are happening faster and faster and faster. I mean, we're getting to the point where we're getting close cycles done in days, not months, right? So like everything is moving faster, and you just got to keep that speed up and keep in front of it.
Excellent. So you're about to flip the coin, and you're not sure whether you're playing NFL or soccer. So this is the AI revolution coming in here, which is great. Paul, you don't have to continue the analogy, but if you want to.
I'll echo what Dino and Barry said and say my football team's 3-0 and not go with that analogy. All right. What I was
you must be a Philly fan then. Hold on. You must be a Philadelphia fan then. No.
College football. I'm not a big NFL.
Oh,
okay. So, what I was going to say is, if there's one piece of advice I'm going to give as close, is commit to one thing you can do to get closer to your business partners to learn the business better. If I could have my closing argument, that would be it. Find one way to do that. And John Florio knows what team I like. Go Cougars. There we go.
Well, we feel like family here. Look, that's a wrap. Thank you very much for your thoughts, your opinions, your insight. I'm hoping that everyone's taken something from that. And, remember, whatever you've clicked on that next priority, then please action it, because you've invested the time to be here today. Hopefully you've learned something. And thank you to Paul, Dino, Barry, and our partners, Revelwood, for being here today. Now, I did mention at the very beginning that we have a way for you to get the replay of this and every replay that we do on Talks. So if you would like to get that replay, we have this thing called the GENCFO Content Fix. You can use that QR code. there's a whole host of stuff in one place, which is linked to a progressive agenda in finance teams in business, not just FP&A, but lots of different things. You might see a lot of familiar faces in there as well, because I do feel like a happy family at GenCFO. And last but not least, spread the word, because this is actually the first time we are in the US, and it's going to be the start of a journey for us, and I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you all. Thank you, Paul, Barry, Dino, and we'll just let that sit on the screen for a bit, and we will say adios for now.